Sometimes when one experiences the loss of someone close to them, they find themselves on a journey in their grief. And sometimes this journey ends up for them searching for what happens after we die. That is exactly the case with Liz Entin. Liz thought of herself as a rational person, and she dismissed the concept of an afterlife until her father passed away. And then she dove deep down the rabbit hole of what happens when we die and does our consciousness live on. She researched mediums. She looked into ghost hunting and seances and spoon bending. She did it all. And today she talks about what for her was the most convincing evidence that our loved ones live on even after their physical bodies die. So I hope you will enjoy today's episode with Liz Entin.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. Welcome, Liz, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to share my story.
So I love the title of your book, the title of your podcast, What WTF Just Happened.
Yes.
So tell us WTF happened to you.
Oh my God, where do I even begin? So I was raised very culturally Jewish, skeptical, science-minded. Woo was just anything I would have used the word woo for back then was not part of my life. Anything like an afterlife, not even on my radar as a realistic possibility. And unfortunately, in 2015, my dad passed away. And I pretty much just shot in the dark, not really expecting anything. If you've been through loss, it's just your brain just goes to weird places. So I was just kind of as a shot in the dark. My immediate thought was, well, if our brain neurons come together, they create our consciousness. It's created by brain neurons, which is what I thought without a doubt at the time. And one time it created me. It makes much more sense that if you look at the concept of eternity, eternal big bangs, big crunches, kind of long thought process of getting there, it makes a lot more sense that there'd be another set of brain neurons. Some point in the future would create another person I got to be. Not the same person, but when your only other thought is total obliteration, seems like a pretty good deal. So I Googled that, and that was kind of the game changer, because that's where all the WTF happened, because I began to find researchers that Google led me to the research of Dr. Jim Tucker and the late Dr. Ian Stevenson. And they are child psychiatrists who study cases of kids with past life memories from a very data-based, science-minded perspective. And they're, I believe I already said child psychiatrists, but also professors of psychiatry at the University of Virginia.
And your mom was a psychiatrist. Is she still a psychiatrist?
She's actually a psychoanalyst therapist who works with psychiatrists.
Got it. Okay.
Put her a psychiatrist in the book. Now I can say that she's like, I don't want anyone to realize this is me. This is all so crazy. So I did a few tweaks with the general, pretty much the same, but she works with psychiatrists all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's not dissimilar from me in that way, I guess. I mean, I'm not an analyst, but a traditional therapist.
Yeah. So now I can say the truth about some of the things that she made me hide. So
So this was about 10 years ago. And
Yes.
what was like the moment where you were like, I mean, was it just the loss of your father, or was there more that started to open you up in this way?
Well, the very initial search was the loss of my father, but I think like when you never ever think an afterlife's a possibility, I hadn't known the level that I carried an existential dread with me. I really didn't have anything to compare it with. So the first taste of comparison where there was a tangible hope that there could be something more, I mean, it just kind of tapped into so many parts of myself, like the core being the immediate grief of my dad, existential dread. I tend to be a very curious person. And I was like, and curiosity kind of is what gets me through. But bad times, it's just, I love learning new things and discovering new things. And I was just like, if this could possibly be true, this is the biggest, most mind-blowing game changer ever. And it's like, kind of like you see the one little step, and then I just felt like I kept having to go further.
So you initially went down the sort of past life, childhood, right? They research children who have experienced and recall experiencing past lives. Was that your gateway, your opening, because it felt the most grounded and researched, or like when you Googled this, you just saw like all this information and they popped to the top? Like, I'm curious why that was the first thing you kind of gravitated towards.
I think it was just like a keyword Google thing. Like, it never would have crossed my mind that there could be what I pretty much think now, some form of consciousness that's not created by our brain, but, you know, kind of stored somewhere like a cloud. So I just ended up Googling. I think pretty much the wording was, is there any, I wouldn't have used the word past life. Like, none of that would even cross my mind, but like, have people lived more than one life? Is there any memory anywhere? So those words led me to Dr. Ian Stevenson and Dr. Jim Tucker. So when I started reading all their books and then looking into, you know, interviews they'd had, that led me to the whole division of perceptual studies. And then the algorithm, which led me to, you know, Windbridge with Dr. Julie Beischel, who conducts up to quintuple-blinded studies on psychic mediums. So it was just, that was the, you know, I guess just based on the very first thought that I had that opened up this whole world that I think people know so little about.
Do you still feel like, I feel like, and maybe it's just because it's the sea I swim in all the time now, that so many more people are aware of all of this, especially now with the onset of the telepathy tapes coming out recently and what seems like a kind of certainly national obsession with what could this possibly be? I mean, obviously that's circumscribed in many ways to neurodivergent folks, but and folks with autism, but it really does, she really does dig into much more than that. So do you feel like things are starting to shift, or we're still so far from that?
You know, it's hard to know exactly. My experience is that things are shifting a lot, but now I don't know if that's because I'm meeting because of this, or if people are talking about it more with me because they know that's what I'm spending my time on. But my perception is things are shifting. I mean, there was also Netflix Surviving Death. I think there's this whole...
Based on Leslie Kean's book.
I think there's been logical research about this type of stuff for a couple hundred years, like when you go back to the Society for Cyclical Research, but you had to dig so deeply. And I feel like bit by bit, like first with the arrival of the internet, you could find it more easily. And then, yeah, it's just, I'd say over the past 10 years, I think it's gone past just having to do deep dive Google with the telepathy tapes, and before that, Surviving Death, and just more and more. I do think it's becoming more known mainstream.
And so, okay, so you enter this space, you get involved with the psychiatrist doing the past life research. Where did things take you from there? And I'm also so curious, your mom, I want to talk a little about your mom, who's like me, traditional in her thinking and probably treatment of people. Where did she end up with everything? I know I put a lot of questions in that.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about my mom. But Yeah, she's not super on board, but I'll start. I'll start with where this led me. Well, it led me down initially just reading books after reading books and everything. That's why I started reading about, mentioned Dr. Julie Beischel. Not only did she have books, she had quintuple-blinded studies. You could read her actual studies. And I tend to be pretty sciencey, so I liked reading all those. Reading about near-death experiences. And then I'd like balance it with reading like books on string theory because I felt like I was a crazy person. So I also find that super interesting and think these really tie in.
String theory, quantum physics, right?
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just had this thought while reading all the medium books. Oh my God, I should go get a medium reading, which now seems so normal. I thought that was the weirdest thought that's ever crossed my mind. I'm like, I'm never going to tell anyone. So at this point, I go down, which ends up being super significant. I go down the Winbridge list and I decide to pick Laura Lynn Jackson, who people haven't heard.
Does Winbridge Institute officially certify mediums?
Forever Family is the main focus
that
does that now. Winbridge years ago
they
certified their mediums.
I know that Forever Family, because that's often where I send people who are looking for mediums, is Forever Family Foundation.
Yeah, they are absolutely amazing, and that they were actually the main thing that changed my life. I first found Laura Lynn Jackson, and her waitlist is astronomical, but I, make a completely fake identity, like get on a VPN, hide everything, email her, like get on a waitlist. In the meantime, while I'm on her waitlist, I coincidentally get the name of another medium, not part of Winbridge, not researched by scientists. Like I go to her website, she has like crystals she's selling. I was like, oh, this is gonna be nonsense, but it'll be interesting to compare scientifically researched medium with just an ordinary
like a lay person.
Yeah.
Who's claiming to be a medium.
Who's claiming. Go to that medium. I'm not giving her name because she's not doing it anymore. Blew me away. Amazing. I was like, what is going on here?
Can you tell us a little bit about that reading and what came through? I know you talk about it in the book, but.
Sure. So I go in, a few of the standouts. My cat Simba had recently passed away and she was exceptionally sweet. First, the woman actually starts all back up. She gets the initial of my dad, and that I was like kind of interesting. But I'm not going to take that. But then it was just evidence after evidence. She said, your cat that recently passed is with your dad. He's holding her. She's the sweet one. We always called her the sweet one because she was so sweet. My dad, she knew stuff about my grandma, that my grandma had lost a young child. She knew my grandma and I had been really alike. She got stuff about my dad that was just remarkable. Like she got, he had a favorite color, and she saw that. It was like, not just like, oh, he likes that color. It was like, he always wore that color. We'd always get like desserts in that color. It was like kind of significant. And she's like, I don't know why I'm seeing like a burst of green. I just keep seeing green. He'd always say like, I would say always like, oh, I love you, Dad. And be like, okay, bye. And I was like, what the F? Like, I love you, and he'd be like, you know what I think of you. Come on. So in the end, this medium asked him, I didn't hear her ask this out loud. She sits there silently for, I don't know how long, like a minute. She's like, oh, your dad's funny. He just said he's getting up to go, which he would do. He would just be done with it. That's it. And she asked him, do you have any more messages? Do you want me to tell your daughter that you love her? Which, first of all, would have meant nothing to me from a medium. That just, of course, whatever. And so he said to her, she knows what I think of her. And it was absolutely remarkable. Yeah. So.
And your mom was your mom with you in this reading, or you told her about it?
She came with me on the train because at this point I was in like really bad grief, like not feeling good going by myself places. I was really scared because it's my first medium reading. I was pretty much expecting to have all my hopes shattered. I didn't think, it was going to be anything. And so she came with me, but we pictured it was just going to be in an office, like typical office space with waiting rooms, or it was out in Long Island. So we pictured, we're from the city, New York City. So we pictured, oh, well, she'll find a cafe along the way and, we'll walk from the train station. And so there was no cafes. And then we went in, it was in the medium's home. So like, there wasn't like a private waiting room for my mom. So she kind of was aligned with it, like, had to hear part of it, but she didn't really want to. She just like found the stuff ridiculous. But there ended up being a significant part, like, my address. I don't give the real building number in the book just because like I don't want my address flying around. But let's say it was like 210. Like the medium kept saying, what happened February 10th? February 10th is significant. And I said, I don't know. She said, why don't we call your mom in? My mom didn't know. And the medium was like, I just keep seeing February 10th, 210. He just keeps showing me the number 210. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. And he'd always like refer to our building by the number. And when he was in the hospital and like moving into hospice, he just kept saying, no, I want to go back to 210. And he would say he was at 210 that morning, which, now at that point I thought was delusions. Now I think there's something to that. So
it's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I'm giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode. Okay, so you have this reading, but this isn't the end of it for you.
Oh my God, no. Not even close. This is like the start.
Right. This is the start of an obsession.
Yes. Yes. As I almost compare it, almost like, what if you woke up one morning, like a kid fantasy, see like a key in your room to like a mystery door, you open it and you walk into a room of colors you've never seen before. Like you couldn't just be like, oh, that's so interesting. Back to life, So I was like, that's crazy. And then I was like, was so high over it for about 24 hours. And I was like, this makes some sense. There must have been a catch. What was the catch?
Right. And I think that's why I think it's so important for people to cultivate these experiences on their own. I think a medium is really powerful. And this happens even when I have my own experiences, like separate from a reading I've had. But in the moment, you're so a believer. Like you cannot think like, of course it's true. And then you step out of the moment and your doubting egoic mind steps in. It's like, nope, that's not possible. How did that happen?
Exactly. And I was just like, I just couldn't wrap my mind around, which I guess I still feel a little stuck on, although I think I can elaborate on this more. I could not wrap my mind around how consciousness and personality could not be in a physical brain. Like, where was it? And so every time something would come to that, it wouldn't make sense. But like what I finally came to realize, how familiar are you, your listeners, with like David Chalmers and the hard problem of consciousness? And
not David Chalmers, but I've had Amit Goswami on, who I forget what the bleep do we know. So he talks about a lot about consciousness. But go ahead, and it's always helpful for them probably, and for me, to get a refresher on things.
Yeah. Well, essentially, it is like the hard problem of consciousness. Neuroscientists say it's created by a brain, but they don't have any understanding how that possibly could work. And that was kind of the thing that really was a game changer in my processing this information, is that it's just as weird. Like, it makes no sense that consciousness could be outside of a brain, and it makes no sense that it could be inside a brain. Like, that's mass matter neurons creating complex conscious experiences with emotions and love. Like, neither makes sense. And once I realized that, I was like, that kind of let me not always hit that as the main obstacle.
And so what else did you find along your journey?
Oh my God, so much. So, I'd mentioned Laura Lynn Jackson, and I ended up going to one of her workshops and thought it was fascinating. And this was like huge game changer. I just wrote her afterwards. I was like, at this point, I really wanted to volunteer for a place that researched consciousness. Like this, could there be an afterlife from a science-based perspective? I had known a bit about the Society for Cyclical Research, and they're international and they're in New York. And I was kind of dead set on maybe working with them, but like I was never hearing back. I found out like they were kind of going through a lot of changes, and I believe they've since closed. But I sent an email to Laura afterwards, and she said, "Oh, try the Forever Family Foundation." And that was like the biggest game changer, because I started took a little bit of time reaching out back and forth, but I ended up volunteering for them and the founders, Fran and Bob Ginsberg. Bob. Yeah.
He's so sweet. I've had him on the show before too.
Oh, yeah. I remember that interview, and they became my adopted parents. Like, Bob introduces me as his daughter at the events. So.
Oh, and he lost a daughter.
He lost his daughter, Bailey.
And Fran died.
Right. Which was, obviously worse for Bob, but that was one of the hardest. That was like a loss close to as hard as losing my dad. Fran and I were like insanely close. So, yeah.
And can you speak a little bit about the amazing work that they do?
Oh my God. They changed my life more than anything in this. So Bailey, their daughter, passed away in, I believe, 2001 when she was 15 in an accident. And Bob and I were very similar in our thoughts, like very science-minded. None of this could be true. Fran thought it could be true, but like it wasn't central to her life. So
what was your background in? What did you study?
I studied in college communications with a business minor.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. I never studied science, but it was like, I enjoyed it. Like it was the default of like how the world worked. Like I wouldn't have thought anything else. So if I wanted to know how something worked, I only did like the material science like approach. Yeah. So Forever Family, they started like doing some of the same research I did, and they ended up getting a board of scientists together who study evidence of an afterlife and near-death experiences. And then they developed a program that uses science-based testing to certify psychic mediums, and they have to get like really accurate information, like accurate and specific. Because I could give anyone 100% accurate. Like, did you have like a couple great grandparents on the other side? And,
Right.
So,
right. It has to be a little more nuanced than just that.
Yeah. And I'm gonna add to my saying I could do that. I have no abilities. So like, yeah. So they have to
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, you know, just because I think this is something people should know before getting readings, you know, like they need to get like something like a name or like occupation, like a little bit along the lines of what I said that first medium got. So
what kind of pushed you after you had this reading and then you were like, maybe not, you're exploring this? What like pushed you to, there is no way this is not possible?
You like where I'm at now? Like you mean? Oh,
yeah. Like this is absolutely truth. I have zero doubt. I know there is the afterlife.
Well, I don't have zero doubt. I think there's a preponderance of evidence, and I would even say past that now. It's like beyond a reasonable doubt. I think it is 95% likely, but I'm not 100% with no doubt.
And what do you think it is? Like, where do you think our consciousness, based on everything that you've talked about in this book and all the research that you've done and how deeply you've looked at everything, what do you think happens?
So this is total speculation. And you also asked me how I got there. I think it's like when all of it comes together, it becomes the most likely explanation, from personal experiences to the science-based research to other people's experiences who I have no reason to doubt, to mediums who I trust both honesty and ability to assess like their experience accurately. All that comes together. And then again, this is total speculation. I'm not a physicist, but if I could guess, it somehow ties into something like, let's take other dimensions, like, you know, string theory talks about other dimensions. Let's take like the fact that we just perceive a tiny, tiny percent of what's going on around us based on being in a physical body. We perceive a small portion of the color spectrum. But
we don't doubt that the full color spectrum exists.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And there's probably a color spectrum beyond what we could even fathom, beyond even what science can fathom. There's probably other types of waves that could be perceived with other types of senses besides like sight, sound, smell, like the types we have as a person. I think that's probably an example of like types of other dimensions. I would guess it's a bit like the cloud. Like our consciousness is the source of it is in non-physical, like some type of quantum particle. And when we're here, a portion of that quantum entangles with us. And we experience this. And all of the people we get to be on this planet, probably other beings on other planets. I mean, I pretty much have no doubt there's life on other planets. I mean, and it all comes together, and each of our lives are really a part of us, but like the way like a week is a part of who we are in this life, and they all sort of upload at the end of our lives, and that becomes a part of who we are, just like every experience we have here becomes a part of who we are.
Have you had your own experiences connecting with your dad?
I have. You know, it's fascinating. Should I share the signs, like the feathers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to hear. I mean, everybody loves those stories. So.
Oh my God, this is my craziest sign I got, and I've gotten a few. So like I mentioned, green is my dad's main color. And I was walking down the street one day, early grief. I had just read about signs and feathers being a sign. I was like, seems like such nonsense, but like I'm taking the approach of considering everything. See a green feather on the street. Okay, I'll consider it. You know, it's kind of weird. I'm in New York. You don't really see green feathers floating around.
It wasn't
the street.
A pigeon feather.
It was not a pigeon feather. And also I'm in like Manhattan on the Upper East Side, which isn't the most artistic area. Like if I was like in an artist area, maybe people are doing like arts and crafts, you know? So, or, you know, making the fashion district, maybe they're making something, but you know, I've never seen one before. And so it's like this bright green feather. I'm like, I'll consider it. I take it home. Fast forward to like 2 years, I guess, and I'm volunteering with Forever Family Foundation, doing their social media. And oh wait, I need to back up just a tiny bit. Before I was at their retreat, I had a reading with one of their mediums, Gina Simone. And in the end, she's like, do you have any questions? I'm like, I need to use this for evidence. So I said, has my dad sent me any signs? And she's basically like, oh, I don't like to tell people that because then they get their heart set on one sign, might miss another. Let's say you wanted me to say green feather. I was like, Gina, it was a green feather. She's like, there you go. So go to the next retreat. I'm making little, like, I guess it was like before Reels, it was like IGTV little videos for Instagram of all our mediums. I end up missing Gina. I feel really bad. I bring that up to Fran, who was still with us. Fran's just like, can you email her and just do like a little one online? I was like, yeah, no problem. And like, I'm the kind of person, once there's a solution, like, I don't think about it. Like, I'll do what I have to do, but I don't, I'm not bothered by it. I don't like dwell on things like that. For some reason, I'm going to take the train back from our retreat in Connecticut. I'm going to spend the night at like my parents' place. I still call it my parents because my animals were there. For some reason, the whole train ride back, after I sent Gina an email, I just kept thinking, oh my God, I feel so bad. That was so amazing when Gina got the green feathers. I feel so bad. I missed Gina. Gina like already wrote back, like, no problem. And I'm still obsessing. I get to like my family place, go to sleep, wake up for some reason, obsessing about this. Like a song stuck in my head more than like feeling horrible about it. But it was like along the lines of, I feel so bad. I missed getting Gina. That was amazing when she got the green feathers. I'm like, I have to get to like my other job. I have a million things to do. Taking my animals on the train, on the subway at this point, like back to my apartment in Brooklyn. And I'm still obsessing, but it's like getting more narrowed down where it was like that. I feel so bad. That was so amazing when Gina got the green feathers. I'm walking up the steps to my apartment and I'm just in my mind. I'm like, green feathers, green feathers. Like if you just have some stuck in your head in the most annoying way. I was like, what is wrong with my brain? Go to sit, like get on my laptop in my room. I look over, there's a pile of green feathers in my room. I was like, what the? Take a photo. I send it to Fran.
WTF just happened.
Exactly. Yeah. I send it to Fran. I'm like, I just need you to tell me if you see these in the photo I'm sending. And she's
Do you
like,
have
yes.
any idea how they got there?
I don't. I mean, it could have been I have roommates. Maybe one went in my room or had a friend sleep there. Like,
but it's still such an obscure thing.
Still so obscure that wouldn't make me think that's this doesn't count anymore, because like, why did all those steps happen? Because that's also another way you could get these signs, is like your people press on someone's brain and would be like, go do this, So yeah. So
back to your mom, because we didn't close that circle.
All right.
Where is she with all of this?
She thinks it's possible, which is huge for her, like huge. She's like, you're smart. I trust you. I know you like carefully assess things. But she's also like, she just kind of won't go there. She's like, it's just a little too out there. I'll start to bring something up and she's like, that is fascinating. And then she'll say, things like that it's actually helping her. But then I'll go a little bit further. She's like, oh, this is just getting crazy. Stop. So,
what's the threshold? Like what tips it into crazy for her?
I cannot begin to imagine, because to me, I'm trying to even think of an example. Like I'll say something that seems like more out there and she'll be like, that's amazing. Then I'll just say some super logical thing. Like I read this study. She's like, oh, this is getting too crazy. I'm like, there's just no consistency to it. So I think it might just be a buildup. Like if I've said like 4 things in like 2 days, it's just too much, or like what she's in the middle of doing. I don't really know. I can't figure it out.
But she's got a lot of resistance to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think she's fascinated. Like it's something she never would have even thought as a possibility. But she's also like, she says she kind of puts it on hold. Like I think she would be, I could guess her resistance comes from she's just like too painful to even start to get her hopes up about it.
How do you feel like this has helped you grieve?
Oh my God, it's been transformative. I don't even have a picture of how I could have gotten through this without it. From multiple angles. It gives hope. Like, I think one of the things for me with grief was just the brutality of never again, like that you will never, this person is wiped from your life. You will never see them again, ever. And having a totally different dialogue around that. And not only will I see them one day, but like the feeling they're around me. And when I start to feel that's hopeless, I suddenly get a big sign and I'm like, oh my God. Through the research, the people I met became like some of my best friends and most important people in my life. And then just fascination, like just, it gives such a joy to think like, oh my God, I'm like, everyone around me is never going to die. Like, I'm not going to die. Like, we're all that
there's an eternal light within us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you so much. You've been on quite a journey. If people want to read about it, they can read A Sciencey Skeptic Explores Grief, Healing, and Evidence of an Afterlife. It's called WTF Just Happened. You also have a podcast. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about everything that you're up to and where they can find you?
Yeah. So Dr. Robbins just mentioned one of the books. I have a podcast and a second book. So
this is book one.
Yeah, that's book one. Book two is same, WTF Just Happened. A Sciencey Skeptic investigates even more evidence of an afterlife and fights for justice with her dead dog. And then a podcast, WTF Just Happened, all about the afterlife, no woo. And I have like mediums, researchers. You're going to be a guest on it in a couple months, which I'm so excited about.
Me
to hear
too.
your
Me
story.
Too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, your book, for taking us on the journey of your curiosity, really, because I think curiosity is what sparks all of this. And for people out there, obviously, if you're listening to this show, you already have some curiosity about this, but I just encourage you to explore for you what resonates, and follow the research, because there is a lot of it. And I think that that's where it's really unfortunate, because it gets dismissed, but there is science behind what we're talking about here. And that's what you bring to light, Liz, is your own layperson kind of journey into really discovering the afterlife.
Oh, thank you so much. I so enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise. Thank you. Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.